Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will introduce myself. My name is Ristriardani. I'm a student of Psychology Faculty of Ristriardani Indonesia University, and my student number is 21240900091. Today, I will explain for you about introduction of psychology, and I will share screen for you. Yes, this is the topic. Introduction to psychology. This text for answer the question below. And have you wondered why the full moon looks so much larger near the horizon than it does in the sky? Or what dreams mean? How about whether lie detectors really work or whether alcoholism is inherited? If so, you have entered the world of psychology, where scientists search for answers to this and many other questions. Psychology is the science of behavior and mental processes. This means that psychologists conduct experiments and use other scientific methods to understand better the action and thoughts of human and animals. From the activity of a single nerve cell to the working of memory and to the social conflicts in a complex society. Okay, the world of psychology overview. In 1879, in Leipzig, Germany, Wilhelm Wundt established the first formal psychology laboratory. One physician and psychologist used the methods of laboratory science, especially experiments in an effort to identify the basic elements of human consciousness. Over the ensuing 115 years, psychologists expanded the range of their research to encompass hundreds of the phenomena from color blindness and racial prejudice to severe depressions and job satisfaction. As a result of this diversity, psychology today has numerous areas of specialization or subfields and subfields of psychology. In March of 1991, television news programs aired a videotape showing for white police officers in Los Angeles kicking and severely beating red roadnecking. An armed African American motorist whom they were trying to arrest. A year later, when an all-white jury in the officer's state trial found the officer not guilty of assault, live broadcast showed parts of Los Angeles exploding in riots. These violent reflections of reactions to prejudice against minorities in the United States provide but one example of the violence that is a distressing fact of public and private life in most countries around the world. In homes, children are abused and spouses are better. In schools, there are fights and even shooting. Streets are the scene of murder and rape and conflicts between demonstrators and police. In some countries, rival militias clash, death squads, torture, and kill political opponents, and there is an endless processions of wars, large and small. And then what causes violence? Why are some people so much more violent than others? What can be done to prevent violence? Some psychologists have addressed these important questions in their research. National Research Council 1993. The particular aspects of violence and the study illustrates the difference in the subject matter of psychology's subfields. Experimental and cognitive psychologists, for example, study such basic components of behavior and mental process as perception, learning, memory, motivation, and emotions, as well as judgment, decision making, and problem solving. Thus, their study of violence might focus on the effect of high temperatures on aggressiveness or how the information people recall about other people might affect the probability of physically attacking them. Biological psychologists, who are also called psychological psychologists, analyze how biology shapes behavior and mental process. Their work has helped us understand, for example, how the brain controls physical movements, regulates eating, and receives information from the sense. With regard to violence, they have looked at whether differences in hormones account for the fact that men tend to be more violent than women. They also study how drugs or brain tumors can create episodes of aggressions in normally peaceful people. While some psychologists seek laws that govern the behavior of people in general, personality psychologists focus on the characteristics that make each person unique. They have identified, for example, the personality dimension known as introversion, extraversion, and they study the relationship between people's scores on personality tests and their tendency to display violence, shy, bored, or fearful behavior. Social psychologists study how people influence one another, especially in groups. They have found that the presence and actions of others affect a wide range of behavior, from individual athletic performance and jury verdicts to group problem solving and mob violence. The research of clinical and counseling psychologists on violence is just one example of their interest in all forms of abnormal behavior. They also provide direct aid to troubled people. And behavior and mental processes are always changing. Developmental psychologists describe these changes and try to understand their causes and effect throughout the lifespan. They ask, for example, whether differences in temperament at birth or variation in parenting pattern might be tied to, say differences in the independency or aggressiveness in adulthood. Research in yet at the subfields, such as community, industrial, organizational, and quantitative psychology, has also shed light on various aspects of violence as well as on many other behaviors and mental processes. And this is approaches to psychology. Suppose you were a psychologist trying to understand the origins of violence. Where would you look for answers? Do the origins lie in hormonal imbalance or brain disorders? Is its source an ancient instinct once necessary for survival, or do learned habits create violence? Each of these questions reflects a different approach to psychology, a different set of guiding assumptions, questions, and methods for understanding behavior and mental processes. Some psychologists adopt only one approach, but many are elected combining features of two or more approaches because they believe that no one perspective can fully account for all aspects of every psychological phenomenon. So they differ in their influence today. The approaches that have been most significant throughout the history psychology are the biological, evolutionary, psychodynamic, behavior, humanistic, and cognitive approaches. And the biological approach, the possibility that violence behavior might stem from a hormonal imbalance or brain disorder. Okay, brain disorder reflects the biological approach. Its roots can be traced back to Wilhelm Wundt. He studied biological process only indirectly by exploring, for example, how long it took people to react to a stimulus. Today, the biological approach focuses on biological processes more directly, examining how specific psychological process shape behavior and mental processes. As you might expect, the biological approach is prominent among biological psychologists who study the psychological effect of hormones, gains, and electrical and chemical activity in the nervous system, especially the brain. However, psychologists in either subfields such as a cognitive or a clinical psychology may also take a biological approach. They try to understand how memories are stored in the brain. They look for patterns of psychological arousal associated with certain forms of thought. They analyze the degree to which a tendency toward mental disorder is affected by the genes inherited from one's parents. Wilhelm Wundt and other early psychologists such as Edward Titchener and Hermann Ebbinghaus used the term experimental psychology of distinguish their laboratory work from the endeavors of philosophers and other who thought and speculated about consciousness, memory, and other psychological matters, but perform no experiments. Okay, that's my explain about the topic introduction to psychology. And thank you for watching my video. Thank you for Mr. Budiantoro. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.